Well, I think that codes like developmental delay, some insurance companies, they don't cover things like that. And that is a huge piece of the population that we serve.
Yeah. I mean, most of the kids that we're seeing have a developmental delay.
Right. And if your insurance can dictate that they're not going to cover that, like, what does that say about the insurance?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Therapy Unmasked. Today, I'm joined, as always, by Nick Sidwell, the owner here at Ability Innovations. And we have Megan Davidson with us, who is currently our admin director, but she's kind of transitioning into a newer role.
Yeah, she's going to be our financial strategist.
And the reason we brought her in is because we want to talk a lot about insurance today. And I know that sounds maybe boring and you don't want to listen to it, but there's a lot of important things that we should consider when it comes to insurance. And Megan's kind of like our insurance expert here.
I wanted to start off by talking about how when I had the idea, like, I'm going to start this clinic, it was like, I don't want to do insurance. I want to just stay away from insurance. And then I'd get a few kids and they'd be like, well, if our insurance could pay for this, this would be great. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this one insurance. And then that turned into two. Okay, I'm just going to do these two. And then you start realizing as a clinic like ours, you just can't get by trying to skirt around insurance companies. And before we knew it, we have like 15 insurance companies that we're working with. And it's created a lot of headaches in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, not just for us, but for families, because they have all these stipulations that you have to follow.
And we're going to dive deep into some of that.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is like, can we go back to and explain, like, we've had lots of discussions about this. Can we go back to it and explain why it might be beneficial to not use insurance? And it's kind of a mindset thing for just society in general. So tell us a little bit more about your thoughts of insurance and why we might want to look or take a deeper look into not using insurance for therapy.
Well, I think the biggest thing is when you hand over to insurance, you have to follow their rules. So the care is based on what their rules are and not necessarily what your child actually needs.
I think every family out there in the back of their mind could be going, my insurance company doesn't know a thing about my child. And yet they're the ones dictating everything about their therapy.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to get authorization from them. And, they just make up things that they think will benefit a whole population, but it doesn't benefit your child or you.
Yeah, it's not specific or individualized.
Right.
It's a cookie cutter approach.
It is.
Okay.
One thing I've noticed with insurance companies, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that insurance companies exist to justify the care that you and your family receive. They want to justify every little aspect of the service that they get, which can be hard because if you have a child who really struggles with handwriting, for example, dysgraphia, well, sometimes they might need to get like an authorization from a doctor before they come in, or they might need a specific diagnosis. It's not like they can just show up at the clinic and we can do the therapy they need.
Which is ironic too, because doctors can barely even sign their name sometimes. Yeah, we all know this. That's the running joke about doctors, that their penmanship isn't great. And how are they the gatekeeper for getting a kid services when your kid needs help with handwriting? Doctors don't study handwriting. Occupational therapists do. We study a little bit of that kind of stuff, and we're really good at that. We're not just handwriting specialists, but we do study that in our schooling. And yet, why are we not the gatekeepers? Mm-hmm. Why is the insurance company having the doctor tell?
Well, and a doctor can't be specialized in all of these things. That's why we have specialists.
Yeah, and the medical field in and of itself is just specializing more and more and more. And that means that it's more cost for those families because to go see a specialist costs more. We have doctors that are gatekeepers still for insurance. And that makes it hard because you have to do this extra step in order to even get the therapy sometimes.
Kind of putting it in perspective too, like Nick is in OT. Like this wasn't just some quick, like 6-month piece of paper degree that you went out and got. This was a long process that cost like thousands, maybe $100,000.
Over $100,000 to get a master's degree and now a doctorate degree to learn all the things and study all the research and be able to the theories and everything behind my practice and what we do and how we do it with people. Yeah. And then there's doctors that are over us. And I think I've found it over and over that we're hard pressed to find doctors that actually know and understand what we do. I could probably say the same thing about, physical therapy is a little bit more medical. And so they understand that one a little bit better, but even like speech language pathology, they don't quite understand everything that they do either.
I just really want to hit home the point that we don't just hire anyone, right, to do these roles. We hire professionals.
Highly skilled professionals.
We hire people with experience, with degrees that understand and fit into, and even further, like we have a play-based model here. They have to fit into that model and know how to do that play-based therapy.
Yeah, that's a certification that we do too. Like they're certified play-based therapists too. And they go through a training process and they earn their certificate. Everyone that works here understands that process and can use it as it's necessary. And for most kids it is, because that's like the main idea of children is play, and they learn best through play. And so that's why we've kind of espoused that. But insurance companies don't understand that at all either.
Right. And then that shifts into our therapists making what they're worth, when it comes to like all this training and schooling. And then, some insurance companies are like, here's $20 for that session you just did, which we're not even joking. Some insurance companies actually will only pay you $20 for a session.
Once you take in the cost of like what it costs to run, like have a building and all the materials and all of that, and then what's left over for the therapist to get paid, so minimal sometimes. Some insurance companies are better than others, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few that are pretty good payers, and then others that are just not. So there's a balance,
and that's like
between the two.
Across the country. It's like that. Yeah.
And you try to look at it objectively and say, like, we want to help as many kids because, like, that's kind of like why we're here.
Yeah, that's our whole mission.
But it's hard to help everyone when there's no revenue, right, coming in.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing too, is because for insurance companies, and we've noticed this, that insurance companies have different payouts that they do. And sometimes for the same therapist with the same degree doing the same kind of therapy, it just depends on what kind of facility that they're in. Because if they're part of a big hospital that's billing for doctors and nurses and therapists and all these different people, they have higher payout rates for the same therapy using the same codes that we use. But sometimes they get how much more?
Oh, it could be hundreds of dollars more
per code.
Right.
Yeah. And so we might bill the same code like 3 times in a session, and they're getting hundreds of dollars more each time they bill that code. And so in essence, they might be getting 3 to 4 times what we're getting paid here in this clinic, just because we're not tied to a hospital. That makes it so hard, because I think, like, why then as a therapist would you work for a place like Ability Innovations or a small clinic instead of a hospital? If you can get paid so much more at a hospital for what you're doing. The funny thing is most therapists aren't actually getting paid. They're not getting paid any different than what they're getting paid here. The insurance company is paying the facility more for the therapist, but the therapist might not be getting paid equal to what the facility is getting paid. So we try and stay really competitive at Ability Innovations for what we pay therapists. In the school district, they get paid this, and in hospitals, they get paid this. And we try and stay up there with all of those, right? But therapists might go to a hospital and they might be making the hospital 3 to 4 times more than what they're making our facility here, but they're not getting paid that 3 to 4 times more. Might be getting paid a little bit more, but oof. what makes the therapy, like if I'm a parent sitting at home and I'm asking myself, what makes a therapy better at one place versus another? How do I make that determination? Is it really about what the therapist is getting paid or what the insurance company pays out for a certain therapy?
I think it's what they're doing.
It's what the therapists are doing?
Yes, how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Is it benefiting you?
And I will say this, like at the beginning, we would talk about how you got to have that connection with that kid. So if your kid doesn't connect well with the therapist, nothing's really going to work. But after that, it's the skills and the techniques of the therapist and how they work with your family that make the difference. Let's talk for a minute more about what insurance companies dictate with that. So what kinds of things have you seen that insurance companies dictate what is being taught and how is being taught?
Well, I think that codes like developmental delay, some insurance companies, they don't cover things like that. And that is a huge piece of the population that we serve.
Yeah. I mean, most of the kids that we're seeing have a developmental delay.
Right. And if your insurance can dictate that they're not going to cover that, like what does that say about the insurance? Other things like I think autism is a decently covered code at this point. It is.
If you're diagnosed, right?
Right. You have to have a diagnosis in order to use the autism diagnosis code. Yes, for sure. Insurances decide if we can use them or not, and they all have a different rule about them. Yeah. One insurance company will cover it, no problem at all. But maybe there's two siblings, and for whatever reason, they have two insurance companies. One of them, they cover it just fine. The other kid has the same diagnosis, same struggles, same goals that we're working on.
Different insurance
company, and they will not cover that because the insurance decided.
That is so frustrating. So there's not uniformity across each insurance company.
No, not at all.
Especially like even diagnosis based, which would seem like that would be a good idea, but that doesn't exist.
No, it doesn't.
So it makes me wonder, like, who is deciding, and this is just a rhetorical question, but who is deciding at these insurance companies, like, we're going to allow these codes, but not these codes. And we're going to say that therapists can do these kinds of things in their sessions, but not these kinds of things. How do insurance companies decide what they're going to pay for or not? We don't know.
We don't know.
It's this big mystery out there. And I mean, we've had heated discussions about this in the past, right? Saying like, is that kind of operating? I might get in trouble for this one, so sorry, Tyler. But okay. Is that operating without a medical license? Is that making determinations about somebody's medical care without having a license? Like these insurance companies,
they do it all the
basically
time.
Doing that. And how are we okay with that as a society? I mean, we've even had kids that all of a sudden the insurance company is saying that they are no longer covered for therapy. Is that like basically an insurance company saying this kid is cured of their autism, or we know that they have cerebral palsy or Down syndrome and we're no longer covering that? Like they were magically cured somehow. And we've determined that as an insurance company. We don't know your kid. We've never seen him, but we're going to determine that and we are no longer going to pay for services. How often does that happen?
All the time.
Oh, are you serious?
All the time. And they also put stipulations on like visit limits. For example, an insurance may only give you 10 visits for the whole year for a child that, you know, maybe has a diagnosis of autism or Down syndrome, just like you said, and they might need more visits than just 10 in a year. And our therapists will say that, you know, yeah, we can prove that they need more visits than that. But because we have to go through insurance, they decide. So yeah, once we use 10 visits, they're cut off.
And Nick, there are tons of studies out there that prove that weekly therapy for these diagnoses greatly improves the quality of this child's life.
So are the insurance companies not even paying attention to the research, the scholarly research that's out there, they don't.
It's almost like it's all about the money.
And I think that's why the temperature of society is really upset with the medical industry right now. And it has a lot to do with the insurance companies because they have been given so much power over making determinations for our lives. And they're not basing it on the people. They're not basing it on the research or even developmental milestones. And I know that even like the 10 visits a year thing, sometimes they give out 20. And where does that come from? If you press them on that, like we've been on the phone with insurance companies, they'll say, well, that's what we give because in rehab, it takes about 12 visits for somebody to rehabilitate into whatever they were able to do before. And that's when we have to stop a lot of insurance companies and say, whoa, we are not doing rehabilitation. Yes, I'm a rehabilitation therapist, but when we're working with kids, more often than not, we are not doing rehab. We're not doing rehabilitation. We're teaching kids a skill that they haven't learned yet before. We're helping them reach milestones that they haven't reached before. They didn't have some kind of major trauma or catastrophe that prevents them from doing what they used to do. Sometimes that's the case, but most of the time we're working with kids that haven't done it before. It's a habilitation approach. And insurance companies are getting better at that, right? We see that they have different policies for habilitative services, but not every insurance company has that. And so if they're going off of, and you can look at your insurance, if your insurance is only offering 10 to 20 visits a year, that's probably coming from a rehab mentality because that's probably all that you need if you were rehabbing.
Right. And that could be true. But yeah, for most of the population that we see, like you said, it's habilitative. They need, if we're doing therapy on a weekly basis, you will
burn through that
52 visits a year. Yeah. Some kids need twice a week, and we can't do that because insurance companies don't give 100 visits a year when that's what that child needs.
They'll pay for that out of pocket. So they'll do everything that they can through insurance and then they'll pay for it out of pocket. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we're here today is saying like, that's a pretty decent approach, but it's a lot of money for families to pay out of pocket. Like we were saying through some of the initiatives that we do, sometimes these families that have a kid with disabilities, they're having to pay $10,000 or more for their kid each year, $10,000 or more. And everybody that's at home listening or in your car listening, like, you know this for sure, that you're paying more for your kid than a typical kid that you see on the street. Like, it costs more for these families. And part of that is insurance companies.
Yeah. And I think it's like upwards of 30% almost. Like they pay 30% more for for their kid to get by day to day. Because they have to buy medical equipment. Sometimes they need like special feeding tubes or devices. Or if you have a child that's nonverbal, they may need an AAC device. They need training on how to use it. So there's just
therapy
so much.
And doctor visits, and there's more medications, and all these things add up. And so the big question today probably is, what is to be done about all of this? Like, how do we help people understand that your insurance company may not be the answer to this? We think in the back of our minds, well, if my insurance pays for it, then I'll do it. And if my insurance doesn't pay for it, then I may not do it. How can we help people understand that that may not be the best approach?
Well, I mean, people go and they get massages, right? And they pay out of pocket for those. There's things like that help your body that you pay out of pocket for.
I know people that'll drop hundreds of dollars to get their hair done every couple of weeks.
Right. There's lots of things that, make you feel better and you pay out of pocket. Think about what care your child needs, what's right for your child. When you don't go through insurance, you take that back. You are in control rather than your insurance being in control.
So you're acting instead of being acted upon.
Right.
And I think like I went to school, I have a master's degree. I spent thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars for that degree. And that was an investment. Like I've paid off all my loans, but I had to get loans to do that. And it was to set me up for my future so that I could be the kind of person that I want to be. And when we look at our children and we think, kids are just full of potential. Like we don't know where they're going to go and we don't know what the future is going to really look like. But we know that our kids are part of that. And so if we can invest whatever we can into what the future is going to look like for my kid, can I facilitate that? And I think what we're saying is if you can facilitate that without all the limitations and the restrictions that insurance companies do, without all the junk that they put in there, you can take control. I like that phrase that you use. You can take control of what your kid needs, the care and the therapy and all the things that your kid needs for their future. And starting from that thought point and saying, what can I actually do financially, physically? Am I in survival mode? What can I actually do to help my kid?
I like the word that you used with investment, because when you think about it, therapy and specifically pediatric therapy is an investment. It's an investment in your child, in their care, and in their development. And I don't want this to come off as like me saying, you're such a bad parent if you don't do pediatric therapy, but every parent wants what's best for their child. And it doesn't hurt to invest in their growth and development.
It pays dividends in their future and it helps them to become who they're going to become. I mean, in the clinic here, we talk about how every kid is like this little superhero and they've got some of these superpowers and we're helping train them to become the superheroes that we need for tomorrow in our world and using what they have. And so sometimes what we're doing in therapy is guiding them along that process that they're already on. Sometimes we're helping them find new superpowers and enhance the ones that they have. That pays dividends for all of us because more often than not, we find that the kids that we work with become the Bill Gates, the Elon Musk, like all of these different people that even Mark Zuckerberg, these people that have changed society completely because of what they have contributed in the world. And a lot of these people, they have disabilities. They have autism or they have ADHD. They have all of these things. These kids that we work with, we don't know if that's who we're working with.
Yeah.
30 years down the line, if we can help them to be able to function in society and really use and harness their superpowers, the world is going to be so much better. And that's how we view the children that we work with. And we want to not be hindered and limited by things like insurance companies. So how can these parents at home that are listening to this, how can they do that? How do they move away from insurance and being insurance companies being the sole backing behind getting the kids what they need?
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge mindset change. I mean, everybody thinks this way, that everything has to go through your insurance.
Yeah. That's what we've been taught.
Yeah. And I mean, as a society, I think everyone's mindset does need to change. But like I said, I mean, we pay for all of these other things out of pocket. This is, we're investing in ourselves in these other ways. Why are we not investing?
Why can't we just think that same way about our kids?
Right. And a lot of the time, out of pocket and what you are paying when you do go through insurance is a similar cost.
Really?
It is. But I mean, even if we go outside of therapy and we think about insurance and medical in general, I mean, you're paying your premium every month. Then you have to meet your deductible. Then you have to meet your out of pocket. So you're still paying thousands and thousands of dollars a lot of the time.
Yeah. We think it's just like a copay in our mind.
Right.
But that only kicks in after the deductible.
Exactly.
Well, and I didn't really think about this until I worked here, but we are a specialty service, right?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like just going to your regular doctor and paying like your $30 copay. Like there's going to be like a deductible you have to meet and out-of-pocket costs, and all of that stuff is hidden, and you don't, even with your insurance, you don't know that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand insurance, and I think the insurance almost does it on purpose.
They capitalize on that.
Yeah. So we don't understand what the heck is a deductible? What is an out-of-pocket? Like we don't, as a society, we don't really understand that. If you compare the cost of what you're paying before you meet your deductible, if you meet your deductible, and an out-of-pocket cost, they're very, very similar majority of the time. Sometimes out-of-pocket might be less than what you're paying with your insurance. So, I mean, you go the private pay route, you may pay actually less. It might be slightly more. It just, depends. Yeah. But then you don't have all these rules that you get to follow. Like your therapist can make,
all the determinations for your kid.
Right. Like suggest, okay, your kid actually might need 2 times a week. You as the parent ultimately make that decision, right? Yeah. So you can control that rather than, well, we think you should have twice a week. We asked your insurance said, no, you can only come every other week. I mean, things like that, you take that control back.
So that's a huge thing. Like if it's very similar what you would pay out of pocket to what you're paying for your insurance already, that's an easy transition. And maybe I'm thinking of some families that, we've got like a surgery coming up or something like that. That should probably go through insurance because those can be very, very big costs. Things like therapy, maybe not so much. And so maybe therapy, and I don't know if many families know this, but you can go in and determine if your kid needs therapy. A therapy professional can help you understand if that's for you or your kid. You don't need insurance to tell you whether you get it or not. And that's one of the biggest fallacies, I think. But then, yeah, like how much therapy and all of that, don't we think that should come from the people that know the most about that field? And yet that comes from insurance companies. So taking that power dynamic back and saying, for my kid and their therapy, or for my kid and their whatever they need for this device or these kinds of things, I'm going to make sure that they have that in the way that they really need it and not be told by somebody else that doesn't even know my kid, not be told by somebody else if I can have that or not, or how much of it I can have.
Yeah, you're in charge of your child's development, not the insurance company.
The funny thing is somebody on social media posted this thing about comparing it to chicken nuggets. Like you go to McDonald's and you order a 6-pack of chicken nuggets. And what if you got up to the window and they said, they take your payment, your full payment, and then they said, we've determined that you only get 2 chicken nuggets. And you're like, what? I paid for 6. And so you're like, I want to talk to your manager. And you pull over to the little stall and they're like talking to you for an hour. The manager comes out and he's like, no, look, like determining your hungry level, which I don't know how they determine that, but determining your hunger level, we've decided that we will give you 2 more chicken nuggets. And you're like, great. Now I've got 4. I've got 4 of my 6. I want the other 2. And they're like, sorry, you can't have it. And that's what the insurance companies do to us. So can we just take that back and we can just not have to go through the people? We can just say, I order 6 chicken nuggets for my kid and I want those 6 chicken nuggets. We can demand that. How empowering is that? If you have thoughts about that, you can leave it in our comments. But I think that the idea behind all of this is you are the parent. You know your kid best. You can go to a professional. Doesn't matter if it's therapy or whatever it is, but you can go to a professional and get the help that you need, and they can help you determine what that needs to look like, the dosage, what kinds of things that they can work on. And you can determine all of that and get that for your kid and not feel bad about it, because the insurance companies don't need to be a part of that. They can, but they don't need to. And if you have that mentality in your head, you're starting from a good place.
And one other point that I was going to bring up is when you do private pay options, you know exactly how much that is going to be. There is no surprises. If you go through insurance, you might get a denied claim and now you're paying several $100s
that you weren't counting on.
Right. Like you never know with insurance how much it is going to be.
And I think oftentimes the families get mad at us, but we're like, we didn't do this. Like, this is your insurance company that just decided this. You don't get your 2 chicken nuggets and you have to pay the full price. Well, I would say one other thing that comes to mind for me is that when you're not going through an insurance company and you're just like, I'm going to get my kid the services that they need, it smooths that process out a lot faster. You don't have to jump to your insurance company and call and make sure and go to this doctor and determine if they have this need or if they even have this diagnosis. You can just say, hey, I'm worried about these things. Go right in, get your therapy. And that whole process is like twice as fast, right? So, and the continuity of care, like the how many visits you get and how often you get it, and being able to maintain that and not be held up by insurance companies saying, whoa, we got to figure this out. You can just keep going. So it's faster to get in. It's better service from the therapy professionals that you know and love. And you can continually get what you need without having somebody telling you yes or no.
And you skip like very expensive steps. Like sometimes they require an authorization.
Yeah.
That requires you to go
every
to a
year.
doctor.
And so you can skip all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway is that going through your insurance, you give the control over to them. But when you don't do that, you take the control back. You know what the costs are going to be. You have control over how often your child is seen. You don't have to deal
and by whom? Because there's some therapists at our clinic that they're not on certain insurances because the insurance company won't let everyone in the clinic on.
Exactly.
And so even though a certain therapist might be the one that you want, or you know that your kid has had that person in the past, it might be the insurance company saying, no, we don't have that provider. You can't see them.
You take all of the control back. That's the biggest takeaway, I think.
Yeah. Be the parent that you know you can be and take that control back. Don't be dictated by all of the things. Don't be acted upon by your insurance company.
Well, thanks for this conversation, guys. I learned a lot. I hope our parents learned a lot too. Again, as we close out this episode of Therapy Unmasked, I just wanted to do a quick reminder that Therapy Unmasked is brought to you by Ability Innovations and even Children in Motion, our sister company in Murray. So all of our therapists do great work, and we help kids every day reach developmental and physical milestones that they might be missing out on. If you want to support us even further, though, you can check out Therapy Unmasked courses. We have a subscription service that gets you access to all of our courses, and it's $14.99 a month. But we are so very awesome and want you to get the best care for your child ever that we give you that first month for free. So if you use code FREETHERAPY, all one word, you can get that entire first month free. Try out the service, see if it's good for you and your child, and then continue using it if you like it. Other than that, thank you, Megan, for joining us. We appreciate it. And thank you, Nick, as always. This has been Therapy Unmasked, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.